Okay, good evening everyone, and welcome to Paralegal Career Night. My name is John Espinosa, and I run the Paralegal program here at Middlesex Community College. Paralegal Career Night is an annual event that we have, a networking event to give students and prospective students the opportunity to hear from experienced paralegals who are working currently in the field, some of whom graduated from this program or other programs, as well as a legal recruiter with expertise in paralegal recruiting. We also have the Paralegal Club over here. They've made some refreshments. Please avail yourselves of those. And representatives of the club can talk about the Paralegal Club and the events that they're having. There's also some people from the Law Center who can speak to that opportunity. We also have in the back materials and representatives from admissions and career services with handouts available to you as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and I'll moderate the discussion, and we'll open it up to questions later on after we hear introductions.
Hi, I'm Shawn Henson, and I'm a corporate paralegal, and I work at Dassault Systems in Waltham. I've been a paralegal for about 20 years.
Hello everyone, my name is James Gately. I'm a litigation paralegal with Jones Day, and I've been a paralegal since I graduated college in 2010.
Hi, my name is Leo Gebert. I'm also a paralegal at Jones Day. I've been a paralegal since 2012, and I work primarily in corporate real estate and tax transactions.
Hi, my name is Maura Mann. I'm a recruiter with the Nagler Group. We have offices in Woburn, Bedford, New Hampshire, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I started my career in the legal field, but have been a recruiter for the last 12 years.
Hi, my name is Lynn Malburn. I'm a manager of paralegals for Conley, Ablett, and Willard here in Woburn. And I manage about 20 paralegals in the foreclosure and sales stages for Florida foreclosures. And I graduated from here in 2008.
Fantastic. Then if you could start us off and talk a little bit about how you landed your first paralegal job.
Sure. First, I'd just like to start out with a little bit of my background so that, I know everybody here comes from diverse backgrounds, and, I just wanted to show you how, you can incorporate anything that you do before you come into the paralegal world, and, to help you with your skills as a paralegal. I was working in the corporate field in administrative work for about 12 years in a high-tech company. And I did some, as I said, administrative assistant work. I worked, then I went on to being a product specialist, where I worked with marketing, R&D, and to get revisions and upgrades out to market for that company. I was also a daycare provider for 12 years, and that helped me out with mediation and negotiations. I also, so after I was a paralegal for about a daycare provider, I came out of the corporate world because I had children, and I decided it was way too much work getting 2 children off to daycare and going out into the corporate world. It was like running the marathon once I got to work. So I decided to, stay home with my children, and, I did that for about 12 years. And then I decided that, I'd like to go back into corporate. So I always liked law. And when I went to get my associate's degree in my previous life, I had a law option in my business administration, and I really enjoyed law, so that always intrigued me. So I started out by taking one course to see if my brain still worked and if I really liked it. So I took Intro to Law, and that sucked me in. I really enjoyed it. Some of the courses that I studied were, and that I enjoyed, were real estate law, contracts, litigation, research and writing, and of course the intern program here at the Law Center. So my paralegal experience, since I graduated in 2008, I worked at a couple of general practices for a couple of years. And in those general practices, I did some criminal law, civil law, family law, bankruptcy, immigration, kind of like a mishmash of different fields. And I find that a lot of the general practice, smaller law offices do diversify in all of, some of the laws that they practice. And for the past 3 years, I have been at a larger law firm, where I am currently at Abbott Schofield, Comingini, Abbott Millard. We just changed our name, so bear with me. Some of the things that I've done there is, because I work in the Florida department, I did a lot of reading dockets, filing motions, and supporting affidavits that go along with the motions, running Department of Defense checks and bankruptcy checks, because those are some of the requirements, federal requirements that you need to adhere to. If there is bankruptcy filed, you can't, continue with the foreclosure. And I've done a lot of scheduling hearings. So the point of me, sharing that experience with you is that, as I said, being a daycare provider, it gave me a lot of skills in mediation, in negotiations, writing up contracts. So everything you do up until you get your paralegal certificate probably can be used, one of those skills can be used in one way or another as a paralegal. You just have to identify that within your skill set and expound on that. Some of the things I think that would serve you well as a paralegal, some of the skills would be, one thing is know that you're supporting the attorney, whether you're in a large firm or a small firm. Know your attorney and what he expects. Every attorney is different, just like every person is different. We all have different personalities. So, it's important to develop a rhythm with your attorney and know what he expects. It makes it a lot easier for everyone else. You'll find that some attorneys are persnickety in some of the things that they like, and just adapt to that. I think flexibility is a really good attribute to have when you're working with different personalities and on different levels. Another thing is attention to detail. You really need to have attention to detail in reading court orders, rules of procedure. Every court, every judge, every county has different sets of what they expect and what they want. So it really is important to pay attention to those details. Research, as you know, case law, LexisNexis, Westlaw, and again, court procedures, judges. Mass lawyer diary is another thing that I used in my general practice firm. That's a really good place to find information that you need. It gives all contact information for courts, ADA, assistant district attorneys. It gives you a wealth of information. It will touch on some procedures and policies that they expect, and it also lists, phone numbers and anything that you might need. So I would say get familiar with that. Organizational skills is really important, and knowing calendaring, because I would say one of the key things in not missing deadlines is having things calendared and knowing, when the deadlines are due. Setting priorities for yourself, setting your daily deadlines and adhering to court deadlines at the same time. You need to kind of marry those two together to get, what you need out of the courts or clients, or, what exactly you're trying to get. Multitasking is another good, you can't have blinders on. I'm doing this project, so, go away, come back in 20 minutes. It just doesn't work that way. So you need to know how to multitask and have obviously good written and oral communication skills. Also, technology is really important to keep up with technology, because many of these calendaring and you know, prioritizing your deadlines, there's a lot of technology out there and they can assist you. You want to learn how to work smarter and not harder. And technology, all the technologies that are coming out can really help out. For a larger law office, many of them use secondary databases to track cases. The clients will know the client database, you know what is expected, understand how they use the database so that you can give them the information in a timely manner and what they need, what exactly they're asking for, at what stage of the civil or criminal case that you're working. When you're writing reports and correspondence, I would suggest that you know your audience. Are you writing it to a client? Are you writing it to the court, the judge, a clerk? Just know your audience and know, what they're going to be expecting from you. Also, case notes are really important. When your day-to-day business, you're going to need to keep case notes for everything that you do, for every case that you do. What I would suggest is that you write for a stranger when you're writing a case notes, so that that person can pick up the file and know exactly where that file is. You may think that sometimes acronyms and shortening your notes might be easier and more efficient for you, but the next person that picks up the file might not understand what you're saying in that last case note. So I would say that is really important also. And phone skills. Everyone should know the phone system that is in the office that you're working for. Know how to put people on hold, know how to transfer calls. That's really important. And I will say, with your phone skills, again, know your audience. Who are you speaking with? And I will give you a little bit of advice, is clerks are your friend. You don't want to make an enemy of a court clerk, because they can make your life miserable. And they can also help you in what you need to get accomplished. So it's all a matter of your presentation when you speak to the person and what you're asking for. You get a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Get a routine, get a daily routine when you get into that office. An example of one of my daily routines would be, first thing, go in, check emails, check your voicemails, confirm the calendar entries, what's on the calendar for today, tomorrow, the end of the week, open mail, and get the filing done. Because many times, if you have an office with a hard filing system, paper, you don't want to go into a file and look for a document and not find it and then realize it's in that stack of pile for filing, and then you have to look through all that, because that's kind of important to keeping the office running efficiently and effectively. And lastly, I would say, keep your sense of humor. Don't take things personally. Things just happen in the business world. It's not being done to make your life miserable or make you work harder. Things just happen, and one of the favorite sayings is, it is what it is. We have to, move on. Let's resolve the issue at hand. And one last thing, I would just say, take advantage of the career services here. When you're in the internship program, I believe when I was in the internship program, they had career services come and meet with us and talk about, writing your resume. They will help you with writing your cover letters also. Cover letters are really important. You want to grab the person and tell them why you're important and you can be a success in that position. And that's it. That's all.
Thank you. Laura, would you like to jump in on tips finding the first paralegal journal?
Sure. Well, I definitely agree. I wholeheartedly agree with taking advantage of the internship program and really getting as much experience as you can when you're still in school. Some of the basics, is putting together a very, very solid resume. Keep in mind, in the legal field, it is very, very detail-oriented, so making sure that there's no typos, making sure there's correct grammar, even taking care with something as simple as an email address, making sure it's your first name and last name, not something more creative. You can keep that as your personal account, but you probably want to have a more professional one. And then it's a lot of hard work and networking. I definitely encourage you to participate in some of the legal groups. There's online forums. Make sure your profile is updated with a picture on LinkedIn. Do as much research as you can so that you can participate in some of those groups and answer questions. And sometimes it may be taking a shot at a position where it might not necessarily be your dream job, but you have to think of every entry-level opportunity to be your next step towards what will be your dream job. There's really no such thing as bad experience. Whatever you're going to get is going to build your resume and help you find the next opportunity and narrow down. There's a lot of different practice areas in law. What might work for one person might not work for another. Every attorney has a different personality. I've worked with ones that are very, very demanding and throwing files around the office, and I've worked with ones that are very timid that need a paralegal that's going to take the bull by the horns and almost direct them as far as what they're going to be doing. I definitely agree with some of the points that Lynn made as far as just things that you want to highlight through the interview process. Attention to detail is probably the most critical thing. Your ability to work with people, since there is a wide range of personalities out there. Try and do as much research on the attorney that you'll be interviewing with as possible. Highlight your ability to handle pressure and meet deadlines. There was a big case in California a few years ago where somebody working in intellectual property missed a couple of the filing deadlines for patents. It ended up costing his company millions of dollars, so there are ramifications if somebody's unable to keep up with the work or just doesn't have good attention to detail to make sure they know when those deadlines are. And in choosing the practice area that you want to be in, keep in mind your personality. Certain practice areas, bankruptcy, real estate, can be more monotonous work. And for some people that's great, but it is filling out forms, making sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Something like family law is very, very emotional. Myself personally, that's probably not a practice area I could ever work in, just because you're dealing with custody, you're dealing with divorces. Things can get a little bit nasty, and it's not going to be the right fit for every person. So keep your own personality in mind too, because I think once you get in and get settled in a certain practice area, it does become a lot harder to make that transition.
Thank you, Maura.
Hi, I'm a corporate paralegal, and everything that they said to you has absolutely nothing to do with what I do. So I'm going to tell you a few things about what I do. When I first started as a paralegal, I worked heavily out of a calendar, like just a journal and notebook. And so today I worked on 12 confidential disclosure agreements. I'm gathering together about 100 intercompany agreements so that I know what the North America and the Latin America companies that I work for within my company, which is called Dassault Systems, how we can move our money around between the companies throughout the world. So we sell software all around the world. We're a multinational company. And so I need to make sure that I can answer to my boss to the tax team and out to finance about whether we can actually do business with our Brazilian office, whether they can do business with the Russian office, back and forth. So I'm working on that project. Had to come out here and do a talk to inspire the younger generation here, the new generation, about becoming a paralegal. And I hope that you hear one thing tonight that makes you think, I can do this. Other things that I did today were, I'm preparing to go to France next week. I'm in charge of a project that's a global project. I work on a team where I represent North America and Latin America, and we are developing a new product for our company. The the legal team is working on this. We are sponsored by the #2 guy in our company, who is the CFO for the French parent. And I stumbled into this because nobody else wanted to go to the meetings. And it's the most boring thing on the planet. I had to look at it. It's incredible. It's the worst ever. All attorneys hate it. But I get to go to France next week. Right? So being a paralegal is not a glamorous job. Most of the time what you're going to be doing is digging through files, answering questions, preparing the attorney, preparing your company, making sure that you're going to make money. Whatever field you're in, your goal is to make sure that you are making money for your employer. Paralegals have managerial roles, they have leaders, they can be secretaries, they can be brainstormers, but they're an integral part of every legal office. And I think it's a very exciting job to have. You never know what you're going to do. I put together binders, I have run to the court, I've searched deeds, and next week I'm going to be sitting in case.
Thank you.
So I think the original question was how we got our first paralegal job. And I think, as Lynn may have mentioned, leveraging your career services options is critical. So I went to a school in Connecticut, and my school arranged for a fair for a bunch of employers to come to. So I ended up going to that, interviewing with a whole bunch of law firms and public entities that were seeking paralegals. And I ended up being offered a job in D.C. to work for the United States Department of Justice. So I ended up moving down to D.C. and working in the antitrust division of the United States Department of Justice. In college, I was a political science major, but I also had a background in economics, so the two sort of overlay in antitrust law. And at the USDOJ, a lot of our time was spent on minutia, like file organization, binders, making sure correspondence comes in and out. But as a case develops and as an attorney begins to trust you, they begin to offer you sort of more advanced roles and can pick up further responsibilities. And that's when you start to show your worth. And if you can do that, that's the job becomes your oyster, and you can make it whatever you want. So I ended up going to trial and sitting at a counsel's table and being in charge of all, bringing up the exhibits in front of a U.S. District Court judge. I ended up being on a trial team that got the first merger enjoyment, so it prevented a merger between two parties that would have potentially led to a monopoly of a specific industry in the Department of Justice for 15 years. So it was an awesome experience. From there, I ended up moving back to Boston, which is where I'm from, and I got that job just through basic networking. I didn't even have to apply. My supervisor at the DOJ was friends with a woman who was recruiting here in Boston, and she forwarded my resume, and that was the end of the story. So if I could sort of say two key points to finding a paralegal job is to leverage your career services department, and then just network the heck out of it.
Good advice. Thank you.
So I first became interested in law sort of by accident. I got a part-time job at a small firm where they really just wanted someone to do copying and make coffee for guests and clients and do filing and really sort of basic tasks. But I became really interested in it, and I showed them that I was interested in it, and they began to let me do more, and that was sort of how it became a passion of mine. And then my first job as an actual paralegal, I adopted a first draft policy. I applied to any job. I was using, career services websites and various like monster.com career builder websites. I was just going website to website of firms and various agencies and places that hire paralegals, and was just applying until someone would take me. But then once and I think every job that I've had is sort of an important stepping stone to the next one. Once you're in there and you can show people that you can do things and you work hard, I think that's most of what it takes, just to show a commitment and basic level, but I'm willing to do what's required of me that sort of leads to the next step. And now I work in tax credit transactions, which I mention to people and they usually immediately shut down. It's actually not at all boring in my opinion. I think it's really interesting. But I think there's something interesting to be found in every field. It's a matter of just sort of digging it out. I spend most of my days, I do a variety of tasks. I draft transaction documents, I review documents, we analyze tax issues, I also do sort of more menial things, organizing our files and making binders and reviewing UCCs and things like that. And I think to echo everything that's been said up to now, I think an attention to detail, organizational skills are so critical. The attorneys really lean on you to have your stuff together. Sometimes you're dealing with, in my area, a transaction that has hundreds of documents and thousands of pages, and you need to know those documents, you need to know where things are, and if a document is missing and it's not in your binder at the end of the transaction, or important detail is missed, then that can create huge problems down the road for someone, costing a lot of money, and a lot of reputation for the attorneys involved, and could trickle down to you as well. So I think that is the most crucial skill.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to jump back to Mara. I wonder, as a recruiter in this field, can you speak a little bit to the current trends in the area?
Absolutely. I mean, we've definitely seen the legal market pick up over the last year or so. It was probably one of the industries that picked up a little bit later as we came out of the recession. Some of the hot areas for us have been corporate. Corporate, I think, just based on where we're located along the 128 belt and then up into the Merrimack Valley. That has been particularly strong. Also intellectual property and anything to do with healthcare law. And then we've recently seen a spike in bankruptcy as well. So those have been kind of our core practice areas that we've seen growing. And it's really been a mix of positions between legal secretary, legal assistant, and paralegal. And that's one thing I'd like to add is not to pay too much attention to the title, particularly as you're looking for your first job. There's a lot of great opportunities out there under the legal assistant realm that mix some of the administrative responsibilities along with some of the more traditional paralegal responsibilities of legal research and writing. Those can be great to gain additional experience and get your foot in the door and then work your way up into a straight paralegal, senior paralegal, paralegal manager type of role.
Thank you. Lynn, you want to jump in on this?
About recruiting and
As far as in your role as a manager, as a supervisor?
sure. What I look for in new recruits is I look, as Mara was saying, I look for the resume. I look to the resume for writing skills, grammar, things like that, and also the cover letter. I look not necessarily for a paralegal experience. I do look for the certificate and any skills that can be used within the position that they're perhaps working with now. Let me see, an example of someone that was not a paralegal that I hired was somebody that does have a paralegal certificate but didn't have any experience but had a lot of knowledge in IT. They had their degree in IT. For me, that was a real bonus because we have a lot of client-based systems, that we used a lot of the technology. So that was important to me, to be able to understand spreadsheets and create spreadsheets if need be. Generally, we hire the starting rate for entry level is, I would say, anywhere from $16 to $18 an hour in the Woburn area.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open it up to all of you to ask questions to the panelists. This is your opportunity to hear directly from people working in the field and who are responsible for hiring the field. So please take advantage of it. Yes?
I've got a question for Mark. One of the descriptions, as you said, not to pay too much attention to the title. One of the things that I've been seeing coming across my desk is contract administrator. Are you putting paralegals towards those kind of jobs?
All the time, and it's actually kind of funny because a lot of JDs get very, very upset that a lot of companies and a lot of firms will choose a paralegal for a contracts manager, contracts administrator job over somebody who's a JD, because there's still the fear that somebody with the JD is going to leave, whereas somebody as a paralegal is building their career and really wants to be in that type of role. Those have picked up tremendously. I think a lot more companies are realizing the advantages, and then some more non-traditional roles that we see paralegals entering into is human resources, particularly any company that has a large team handling like employment law situations, and then also purchasing, because there's so much research and negotiation and contracts involved. It's a pretty easy transition for somebody into that type of role.
Thank you. Yes.
Some of us, you can see by looking, are somewhat older than others here. What are the opportunities, do you think, what are they like for second career or older paralegals applying for jobs? I mean, is there an age bias that you see, or?
It really, I mean, I won't pretend that certain corporate cultures, certain firm cultures don't lean one way or the other, but for every firm out there that's looking for somebody that's a 23-year-old, there's also a firm out there looking for somebody who's more mature and values the skill set that they bring to the table from a previous career. I would say in terms of interviewing, it's that confidence in the transferable skills. Lynn talked a lot about transferable skills. Sometimes we'll have people come in, and I coach on this as a recruiter, but we'll say, oh, well, I did this, I did that. It's really being able to make the case for yourself of how what you've done in the past could benefit your next employer.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, actually.
Oh.
I've been looking a lot in Monster.com, Indeed.com, ever since I signed up for a paralegal program. A lot of the things that I do see is 3 to 5 years experience, 3 to 5 years experience, all the time. And actually in every single one, in about 5 pages, 3 to 5 years experience. Not that I don't want to discourage him, applying for it, but do you feel that it's okay, at least for all of us, to go ahead and apply for those kind of positions, because you never know that you might turn up with a position anyway?
That's a great question, and I'd like to give that to the whole panel to answer, but you can start off.
Absolutely, I would go ahead and apply to them, because whenever somebody invests the money, and it's not inexpensive to put an ad on Monster, that might be their dream candidate, but the market keeps changing every single day, and their dream candidate might not be available for the amount of money that they offer. So we'll usually, as recruiters, advise clients, you want to take a look at a less experienced option, somebody who kind of falls plunk in the middle, and then a more experienced option, and kind of give them the realm of what falls within their salary range. And I think clients look at that all the time and kind of reevaluate that if anything, I would say more choose to go with somebody junior level that they can train on their ways, on their culture, rather than necessarily always choosing the person that's spot on for the job.
Great, thank you. Lynn, you want to jump in?
Going back to the previous conversation, as a matter of fact, one of the paralegals that is under me just did get a new job as a contract manager. So that is a possibility. He starts on Monday.
That's a great example, thank you.
Yes.
Does anyone else want to speak to the experience issue, or anything else to talk about so far?
What? I just kind of think it's what you make it. You go in there and you present yourself. For my first job, I didn't have any experience in the legal industry. I had had a few internships that definitely did not directly apply to being a paralegal. But I was able to sort of, repurpose some of my experiences and present them in a way that said, hey, look, this is what you guys are looking for. I've done that. I can do that, although I don't have 2 or 3 years experience as a paralegal. I have 2 or 3 years experience doing those skills and working those skills. So it's all about getting in there and presenting yourself in the same way on your resume, showing that I have the skills that transfer.
I actually got a job by doing exactly that. My first job as a paralegal was, as I mentioned, I was applying to everything, anywhere, and I applied to a job that asked for 3 to 5 years experience, and they gave me a call and they said, you know, the position that you applied for, we're looking for someone more experienced, but we had this other position that wasn't on our website that we think you'd be perfect for. And that's a position that the vast majority of the time they were filling through internal referrals. They rarely even put it out there, but I just had good timing and persistence, and I happened to come across a job that wasn't on the public market, and that's the job I had to do as well.
If I could just add one thing to that too, that happens a lot more than I think anyone thinks. And keep in mind, depending upon where you're applying, a larger company or a larger firm, or even a lot of the mid-sized companies and firms now will use what they call an applicant tracking system. So when you're sending your resume, it's going to human resources at whoever.com. Try through either LinkedIn or just by cold calling into the company, speaking with an actual person, because that's going to be your opportunity to make your case for yourself too, of why the position is a good fit. A lot of times things get lost in the shuffle through those electronic systems. So anytime you can talk to an actual person and tell them about yourself, I think that's, you know, a great way to say, well, if I'm not a fit for this job, what else do you have coming up? Or an informational interview too. People appreciate the fact that you might not necessarily be going for one specific job, but you've taken an interest in their company and or firm and you want to learn more about it. So maybe going in and spending 15, 20 minutes, a half hour with the attorney. You can always offer to bring coffee and just say, I'd like to get to know you. I'd like to bounce ideas off you for my job search. A lot of people are open to that, and sometimes it turns into a job offer.
Great advice, thank you. Do you want to add anything to this?
Sure. 10 years ago, I would have said that a lot of what people are saying here tonight is a good thing to do an informational interview, or to bring coffee, or to try to pretend you're something you're not. But you guys don't have to do that anymore, because you have paralegal training, and you have a certificate, and you've been working at an internship. You're walking in the door with a paralegal experience. If you want to get a job as a legal secretary, you're going to make a lot more money starting out in the legal world. They can start off anywhere from $50,000 to $125,000. Paralegals can start out at 30 to maybe 70. You're not going to make as much money as a paralegal as you would as an executive legal assistant. But you're going to give up on being your own boss in certain ways. As a paralegal, you manage projects, and you are reporting in with the team, with the legal team. You're working with the attorneys. When you're an executive secretary, you are working for the attorney. And that's a great thing too. If you can get a job, like I did this, I worked for a very senior partner who was once the GC for Heller Financial. He was also the GC for the St. Paul Insurance Company. And he's one of the top insurance, litigation, and complex corporate attorneys in the world. If you can get a job with that kind of guy or woman, take it, because that person will sponsor you, and they will teach you everything they know, and that's the job to take. But as far as a paralegal job, you need to go in there and you need to say to them, I am going to make money for you. I'm going to make things happen. Hire me. And then you sell it. Okay? None of this coffee or any of that. You guys are trained.
Good advice. Thank you, Charlotte. I saw some other hands up.
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned informational interview, because that's how I got all of the jobs I've had in the last 8 years, through networking and informational interviews. So I wanted to know if any of you had done that. And actually, Leo, you're the one that reminded me of it. When you applied to every job under the sun, I wanted to know, did you apply or do informational interviews at places that weren't necessarily posting, but you thought they definitely hire paralegals if I just send them a letter saying, can I come meet you? Did you try any of that, or did anyone else try it? You didn't try it out?
Not so much. But I definitely was just shooting emails to places that didn't necessarily have job postings, but
Right.
like firms that, firms always definitely have some kind of paralegal assistance, and if they had an office in the city that I would consider being in, even if there was nothing posted as open on their website, maybe there's something. The worst thing that can happen is you don't get a job, and the best thing that can happen is you do get a job, and maybe you even really like it. So it can't hurt to just sort of blast everyone. But I never really did like informational interviews sort of that sort of.
How about the rest of you?
I never turned down a free lunch. So if you get a chance to go to some sort of a networking event, go and talk to people. Bring a card that has your name and your phone number and your LinkedIn address on there, and hand it to every attorney in the room. Attorneys are people. If they like you, they will hire you. And that's the basic what it all comes down to, is that you need to get to know as many attorneys as possible. Go to the Mass Bar events. You can take classes at the Mass Bar as paralegal, and you can join the Mass Bar as paralegal. Hang out at the law libraries. Hang out where attorneys hang out, golf courses, tennis courts. Make sure you know 10 attorneys and let them know you need a job.
The bars around any courthouse.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on the informational interviews networking?
I have no personal experience with informational interviews, either being a recipient or conducting them.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Hi, this kind of adds a little bit to what you mentioned with the Massachusetts Bar and classes and such. What opportunities would you recommend for those that are currently working full-time during the day and might not necessarily have the availability to do a daytime internship, perhaps night, weekend type opportunities, volunteer type opportunities? What would you recommend for networking in that regard?
Most of the networking events are in the evenings anyway, just because most of the people going to them are working full-time during the day anyway. So I think you can still get out. I mean, as far as internships go, I think that's a little bit harder just because the legal field is obviously more of a daytime rather than a 3-shift type of operation.
Other thoughts on that?
We formed a club in Waltham, a bunch of the paralegals in the area right along Lyman Street, and we get together and have lunches every couple months. Unfortunately, my best buddy from the group was recently recruited by Apple, and they took her away from me, and now she's down south. But they took Apple 2 years to pry her away from Thermo Fisher. So get a group of friends, get out there and do things together. At the Mass Paralegal Association, a group of about 10 of us would set up courses. So we did CIPP training together, we did bankruptcy training together, we taught each other. We assigned each other a chapter, and then that person had to be responsible for teaching it. And we would get together on view.com, which is a free video conferencing site. There are tons of them now. Back when we did it, there weren't that many that were free. But get together with a group of people and become lifelong friends.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's basically it. I think you just got to get out there and get to these events and show your face and get to know people in the industry. Because in Massachusetts, the legal industry is really not that large. So if you can know one person, you know, they'll be happy to introduce you to a few more, and that'll just ripple out. And eventually you'll find yourself with a job.
That's what it came.
Exactly.
Either one of you.
I just wondered if any of you are aware of your firm's outsourcing to freelancers, things like research or writing.
Well, our firm is a large firm, but we just opened our Boston office a few years ago. So Leo and I are actually the only 2 paralegals in the office. So if we ever need to outsource work, it's usually to one of our larger offices. So I'm not sure that Jones Day necessarily does that.
It's becoming more common, but they're mostly outsourcing to India, and they're mostly looking for attorneys. On paralegals, they want you there in the office full time. And it's very rare you can work from home. I can work from home like maybe 1 to 2 days a week, or if the weather's bad, or if I tell my boss I don't want to go to work that day, I need to be at home. I have to have a good reason for that, but I can do it. So for freelancing, you're going to have to set yourself up as your own business and get out there and sell yourself. One of the insurance defense firms that I worked for did accept freelance secretaries, and they got paid pretty well. And I know that some of the other big firms like Middlesex, Peabody, I know they also will accept freelancers, not for paralegals though, but for legal secretaries.
Good to know.
I've definitely seen it, but I think one of the tough things is typically, because you are running your own business, those people come in with a lot of experience and a lot of existing contacts, so that they're able to market their business as well as do the actual work. As far as the outsourcing overseas, I've only seen it with attorneys as well. I've never really seen it with paralegals. And funny enough, most of the companies and firms that I've worked with that have sent like document review projects or something similar out overseas, it hasn't worked out all that well for them. Just even the work product itself, if that's been fine, the time differences have been harder to deal with because it's not even West Coast. I mean, if you're dealing with India, it's a huge time difference. So.
Good point. Thank you.
And when I was working in the general practice offices, the only thing that we ever outsourced was transcription of court minutes because we needed those, court minutes to see what went on. So we would outsource that. But as far as the company that I work for now, we do not outsource any of our work product other than attorneys.
Thank you. I saw a few other hands up. Yes.
As a woman, do you see that the firms are being supportive of women and family, like on-site daycare or contribution to their child care costs? And then that's one question. And then a separate question is that I've also been reading that paralegals is sort of a stepping stone to a legal career as a lawyer. Are you seeing any firms sponsoring their paralegals for law school?
Good questions.
I can speak to the women in the workforce. Our firm particularly does, accommodate, mothers with small children. We also have a daycare on site, and our firm offers a 50% discount towards the daycare. So I do see that in the industry. And what was the second question?
Sponsoring the paralegals for continuing education on law school.
I don't have any personal experience with that, but I do, as far as they're supportive, I do have some paralegals now that currently work under me that are law school students. But as far as contributing corporate contributions towards that education, my firm in particular does not do that.
Thank you. Mark?
I think there's been big changes as far as the work-life balance and the importance in the women in the workplace, at least since I went to law school, which I will say is many years ago. So I think and that's something to keep in mind when you're looking. I mean, typically with like subsidized daycare, on-site daycare, that type of thing, it does tend to be larger companies or larger firms that will have a relationship with a nearby daycare and offer those types of discounts. But over and above that, I think what I've seen to stay competitive, smaller and more mid-sized firms and companies will just offer more flexible work hours of maybe somebody going in a little bit earlier so that they can head out and do their daycare pickup. Technology is a beautiful thing now that everybody has an iPhone and can check email remotely, and most people have laptops so that they can sign on to their VPN and still do work from home. So we've seen more in terms of being able to accommodate snow days and things like that, or in some cases I have a few clients that even allow employees to bring their children into the workplace if the child's going to be home for a snow day and they have to go into the office, or if it's a half day from school, something like that. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question? I haven't heard of that as far as subsidies. I mean, in companies, yes, in the law firms, no. What I've seen more in some of the larger law firms is having it more like a tailored program, that they bring somebody in as a paralegal with knowing that that person's intention is to go on to law school in a couple of years. So it's almost a cycling, like almost like they do with attorneys, where you have a first year and a second year associate. There's first year and second year paralegals who then leave and go on to law school, and those positions are refilled yearly.
Thank you.
All right, I've got a story for you. I volunteer for a group called Discovering Justice, and this would be a great opportunity for for you all as well. You get to go into the courts, and they have a special program once a year where they bring kids in, and kids are trained by the big law firms in downtown Boston. So each group of kids has a team of lawyers that's teaching them their role within the court case. So people like us, paralegals and attorneys and other legal professionals, they sit in the jury. So I'm sitting in the jury up at the federal courthouse, and we've got a real judge, we've got real lawyers who happen to be like age 9 or 10. And we have, it's fantastic. I'm sitting next to a named partner in Boston law firm. He leans over towards the end of the evening, and he says to his number one guy sitting next to him, these are guys in Armani suits sitting next to me, and he says, "We need to get more women involved in our law firm here." And this wasn't 2 years ago. So it's changed a lot. If you can get a partner like that to say, let's get more women in, things have changed greatly. There's a great book you can get, and MCLE just did a book on the history of women in law, and you can see what it was like for women 25 years ago compared to women now. Nowadays it's a lot better, but still you can expect to have very long hours. You can expect that you're going to have to make a sacrifice. You're going to have to decide sometimes whether you're going to stay and work and get the job done to keep your job, or if you're going to go home because your kid needs you, they're sick, and they've got homework. And that's just part of life. This is a tough, tough profession. You're going to have to make decisions that you're going to regret, and you're going to get rewarded for it over time. But you have to also be able to speak up and tell your bosses when you need something from them. If you need to go home because your child's sick, or it's just time for you to ease up on your schedule, you need to speak up as well. That's really your responsibility, because they will crush you to the ground. They will work you to death. You have to stand up for yourself.
Thank you. Any thoughts on the law school issue from anyone?
Yes, you're going to have more you can get help with your education, tuition assistance. With many companies nowadays, they'll pay like up to $2,500 a year, but law school is $40,000 a year, and you don't have time to work full time and go to law school. If you can do that, then you are a Wonder Woman and Superman, and you don't need their money. So I would recommend that you don't rely on that, and that you rely on either working for a period of time and saving up some money, trying to get a scholarship, and marrying rich.
Just wait quickly. I'll be attending law school in the fall, and so I've been a paralegal since 2010. And law schools definitely look favorably upon people who were paralegals. It shows initiative, it shows that you know the industry, it shows that you want to get into the legal field. But as far as firms or companies subsidizing your education, that's, I think, extremely rare and is not something you should count on. Unless it's a very particular case in which you can show the firm that, you know, in 3 years, basically, I'll be able to add this much more, however much the tuition costs, to the firm. It's an uphill sell when you compound that with the fact that right now the legal market for attorneys is essentially flooded. So it's not something I would count on, but on the other side of that coin is that being a paralegal builds your law school application, and which could then lead to a scholarship.
I agree with what James said. I think I've asked the question since I'm considering going to law school at some point, and the answer I've gotten is pretty much there are so many law students. Why would they pay for someone to go to law school? Not pay for someone to go to law school. But the last firm that I worked at did offer a small stipend for, it was like $2,500 a year or something like that, for students who were like taking part-time classes while working there. And like, you know, the hope at least was that not that they would pay for law school, but that you could stay there and be hooked up with some attorney at the end of law school. So, and then hopefully that will help you pay for it.
I have something else I want to tell you.
Please.
A friend of mine who's a paralegal, she graduated from Yale back in the 70s, and unfortunately at the time, she couldn't get a real paralegal job that didn't exist at the time, so she was an executive assistant, and then she worked into the paralegal world over the years. So long story short, a few years ago, my group of lifelong friends got together, 4 of us, and everyone decided to go to law school, and we decided we were either going to go to law school in person, 2 people decided to do that, or online. 1 person decided to do that. And then I decided to be a writer instead and stay as a paralegal. So I want to tell you about the one who did the alternate. She went to an online law school in California. She has now graduated from that law school. It cost her $12,000. She passed the California bar. She has also passed the Massachusetts bar. And she is an attorney here in Massachusetts now. And she paid, I think actually it was $12,000 a year, so it would be pretty close to like between 30 and 40 for the entire law school program. And you're probably asking yourself, how did she manage to take the Mass bar? Because so many people have been declined the opportunity to take the Mass bar if they've gone to online law school. That's because she didn't ask. She applied. She was terrified. She was waiting for that letter that would come that would say, well, you can't sit for the bar because your school doesn't count towards the qualifications. That letter never came. So she's now an attorney. She has her own law firm. Wow.
Thank you for that interesting, creative
solution. So 2,500 won't get you far, but 40,000 will.
Thank you. Any other final questions for our panel? Any other final? Yes.
I heard a rumor that when you're a paralegal, you have to be able to type so many words per minute. Is that more so applied for the legal secretaries, or does that apply for the paralegals too? And if so, what's the standard on that?
Anyone want to take that?
I can jump into that. I have, in applying and interviewing for paralegal jobs, been tested for typing ability, but it's not everywhere. It's happened maybe twice, 2% interviewed, and I wouldn't say like people pressure me in my day-to-day life to type so fast, but I do still have. You may be tested.
I've only heard about it in very, very large firms, and not for paralegals, more for legal secretaries and legal assistants. And I mean, typically what they look for is somewhere in the neighborhood of 60, 65 plus words a minute. But a lot of what they're looking for too is how you score on the accuracy section.
Anyone else?
As a manager, I've never asked what their typing score was. Because in my particular experience, we do a lot of the documents that we do are housed in our corporate database, and most of them are templates. We're retyping. I mean, this day and age, we're not retyping, motions to reset or motions for judgment. We're creating them by a template and changing very minor details within those documents. So as far as the typing skills, that's not something that is a factor for me in hiring.
Thank you. Any final thoughts from anyone on the panel?
Yeah, life has changed. Typing is out.
Definitely.
If anyone asks you for a typing test, and it's not a law firm you're dying to work for, maybe that's not the right place for you.
Good point. Good enough. Thank you. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to thank the panel for joining us.
Wait, I have a question for you guys. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I prepared questions for you.
Oh, go ahead.
How many of you have the word paralegal on your resume at least 5 times? Okay, I want you to go home and fix that tonight. At the top, I want you to say paralegal in your objectives. What do you want? I want to be a paralegal. What kind of education do you have? I have a paralegal education. What kind of work history do you have? I have a paralegal work history. what type of technical skills do you have? I have legal and paralegal technical skills. Get that word on there 400 times if you can. You can put it in the footer, put it in the header, put it on the back, put it along the side, everywhere. Put your name, Shauna Hansen, paralegal. And then go on LinkedIn tonight. Look at my LinkedIn site, okay? Because I have copied every successful paralegal's LinkedIn site that I've ever met. So it's going to say, Shauna Hansen, experienced and project-oriented paralegal. So find something like that that you can connect with and that you can sell in your interview. You need to tell people who you are. They want to know your transferable skills, definitely, but they want to know that you're a paralegal. And so you have to tell them that in your resume. And so if you have some good ways to say that, please forward them to me and I'll put them in my resume.
Share. Thank you.